everybody. And to give a little breakdown into what the game plan is today, we've got a shot that was taken a couple days ago. We did an MMA shoot, and I'm going to try to guess to see how many lights are used, where the lights are placed, and then using a cool program called 3D Satellite, we will be breaking down where the lights are and why the lights are placed where they were. But what's going on, Brad? How are you? Thanks for joining. We'll give it a few more minutes. We got Brad in YYC. YYC, is that Toronto? I think YYC is Toronto. At least I think that's the airport code. Audio check. Make sure there's no echo. Toronto, Calgary, Toronto. One of my favorite places to go. I've been there like 2 or 3 times. All right, we got no echo, so that's good. Thank you so much. All right, guys, let's go get started. Right now, we have a MMA shoot that was done. We have person camera left, person camera right. One of the exercises that we do whenever you take a look at any image online is to try to figure out where the lights are placed. One of my old mentors, he used to send me images, and he would say, basically, find the lights. And so he'd send some that had a single light, some that had 2, 3, 4, 5, and then some that had lights that were artificially placed into the image. For example, using a big white building or using sand, trying to figure out where the light was used, where it was placed, and what inanimate objects around you could also help with the lighting also. We have Portugal. Hola, Portugal. We got Mr. Ripoff, and that's Jerry I can't pronounce that. Eustaquio? Sorry, I know I slaughtered that. So sorry. So in here, by show of comments, how many lights do you think were used on this image here? Let's see if some of you guys have some guesses. And sorry, Brandon, I didn't mean to miss your comment. All right, so Brad is guessing 2 lights with the mat acting as a bounce. Monty is guessing 4. Andrew is guessing 3. V. Tanner guesses 4. Russ guesses 7. Roy guesses 5. Mike guesses 4. Don Jackson guesses 3. Brandon guesses 3. Ray, we have only 2. So we have quite a wide range of lighting. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. First thing you want to do, can you guys see my cursor? All right. So if you take a look at the cursor, what you're looking for is edge light. So first thing I look for is look at the rim. So we have a really bright torso or midsection here. So if you have brightness here, and then it's also going down the leg, if there were a light down here for our edge light or for a rim, if it's positioned lower, then it's going to have a harder time hitting the top of the head. So already I see that there's going to be some kind of edge light for separation up high. And then if there's a light down low, unless the light is, unless it's in a really large modifier to allow for that top and bottom. So you have edge lights here that you want to kind of factor in. We have a couple more guesses. So we have 2 from my ripoff. Mr. Stranger 911 911 says 5. So we have edge light on this side. We have highlight on the leg here. So one thing to keep in mind on this side here, because there's highlight on the outside of the quad and a shadow, there's most likely not going to be a light on the front side because there's a heavy shadow here, there's a heavy shadow here, and there's a heavy shadow right in here as well. There's a light coming from the left side to hit the quad, but there's also a light on the front of the quad on this side too. So if there's edge light back here, see how bright that light is here and how bright that light is here. If this light here were from the same light source as this edge light, then there would be the same brightness here. So that's really blown out. That's really blown out. If that were the same light source as this, then this too would be blown out. Hopefully that makes sense. We have light here on the underneath. So if that is from the edge light that's sitting on top of the head, because of the angle of the under part of the forearm, it's going to be kind of hard for an edge light to be up here to light the top of the head while also lighting the bottom of the arm too. So these are some things you want to kind of factor in. Then we have the back side of the shoulder, and then we have short side lighting, the lights on the back side of the face. Short side lighting is going to be on this side, the short side. Then this is the long side of the face. So that's one thing you want to factor in as well. So breaking this down and then adding in a subject here, there's also no highlight on this side. So chances are there's not going to be a light on this side of the shot. And then of course you have a bright spot here. So the bright spot here, and then you also have highlights on the bottom as well. So the same principle that applies on this side. It's going to be hard to have just one light on this side because you have separation on the forehead, or on the top of the head, then also on the bottom of the leg as well. So to have highlights on the bottom and on the top, that's going to be an indicator of how many lights you have. Is this making sense? If this is making sense, type in C. Either letter C or SI for those who habla español. Just so I know if I need to back up a little bit. Monty says C. This is my attempt to recreate the pose with 3D satellite. And for some reason the screen share is acting a bit all wonky. But let's break this down. All right, I'm going to enlarge in this real quick. All right, so we have our two subjects here. And then, I got a spinning ball. Edge lights. So in the back, you have a light up top and a light down below. So these are the edge lights. The edge lights are we're going to give you the rim on the top side and then on all the way down to the knee. Here we have the lights down below. This light down below is going to be hitting the lower part of the quad. And then we have a big umbrella up top. And that one is specifically placed for the short side lighting in the face. And then top of the shoulder. And then this light down here, we have an octo. And this is to kind of light up his face a little bit and then also to get a tiny bit aiming on his core. It was 5 lights for those of you who guessed 5. Great answer. For those of you who guessed 2, hopefully you guys can see what the purpose, what the benefit is. And unfortunately, my program is freezing up. Otherwise, I would show what all the different lights did individually. But I think this is a really super asset heavy program, so I'm not sure what exactly is going on here. But we have, with this program, the nice thing is it allows you to change your camera settings so that we can get the exact lens that you're using. It can allow you to go up and down so you can move the camera around so you can see what the shots would look like as you move or change your lenses or your aperture or shutter speed, etc., etc. And then this program also allows you to add different modifiers, change the location, power setting, the strength of the strobes. You can add color gels, etc., etc. For some reason, my computer is locking up, so I'm going to try to resolve this, and I'll log back on in a couple days. Hopefully, you guys saw value in the breakdown. Hopefully, the lighting diagram made sense to you, and if so, please leave a comment. For those of you who are not already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and hopefully, you guys have an amazing week. Thanks for joining. While I try to turn this off, if you have any questions, let me know as well. Roy, I will definitely try to do it. James, I'm going to hopefully this will be recorded, so there will be a replay. Monty, thank you so much for joining. We're just going to try to do this 3 or 4 times a week. The name of the program is going to be written in the description of the video. It's 3D Set a Light. There's actually a promo code for 15% off. If you had 7 lights, what I would do? Great question. If I had 7 lights, what I might do is I might add one right by the camera, just to give a little bit of an additional highlight. Normally when you're shooting MMA folks, when you have them work out, you have to get the timing just right, because you're wanting to take the shot either right in the middle of the action or right as they're making contact. And what I normally do is I have them warm up so they're constantly moving. And then when they're constantly moving, you'll find that their bodies start sweating a ton. So if they already have a lot of natural sweat going on, I don't like using baby oil with MMA, because if they're rolling around on the mats, it's going to mess up the mats. But if they have tons of sweat, then if you have a light by the camera, you can use a bare bulb. With a bare bulb, what that's going to do is it's going to give a tiny bit of a specular highlight on the skin that's going to look amazing because of all the sweat, and it's going to add in just a little bit more detail, just in case you don't want it to be so moody and dramatic. Another light that I would use is I might put a light on the background if there are some intentional items that you want to showcase. For example, this was an MMA ring, or MMA gym. So they had a boxing ring. They also had a like octagon in the background. So if you were to use a light to either light the background up so there's more detail, or use some kind of like gobo, add some kind of pattern in the background to give a little bit more aesthetic appeal. So those are a couple different ways to use lighting, additional lights. Background honestly is what most people think of last, and that's one of those things where, when you think of lighting, you think of lighting the subject first. When you start adding tons of lights to showcase the body and the physique, and then you have an opportunity, because right now if you look at the example image here, the background's kind of, I don't know, just kind of boring. So in the overall edit, I did have the gym, where you can see some of the gym pop up. But if you were to put some kind of highlights right in the middle, or somewhere off to the side, this right here is a chain link fence. So if you were to put a light behind the fence, then you could bring out the detail in the fence behind that, just give it a little bit more depth. I have a CrossFit shoot coming up. I only have 2 8600s and 2 8200s. Thinking how best to use these. I have 1 week to work out this shoot till game day. Oh, tons of lights. I have a CrossFit shoot coming up. Yeah, easy light setup for CrossFit is just to use. Let me try to reset this program. Hang tight. If I can reset this. If I can, hopefully it saved it. If it did, then we'll go over this. Oops. All right, so let's start this from scratch. Here's the camera. Here's the model. Let's imagine that we have a male CrossFit athlete here. If he's CrossFit, you can change his wardrobe. Let's go into shorts. Let's have him wearing black shorts. Let's have no shirts. And let's make sure that he's got some oil on his body there. All right, we have this lighting here. And let's actually build a CrossFit gym scenario. If you go into props, let's add in for CrossFit. One of the common props for CrossFit is this right here. All right, so bear with me as we try to design this real quick. So we have 4 lights set up. I'm going to show you a few different light setups. Okay, so for CrossFit, James, type in what lens. What lens are you going to be using? And if you don't have one selected, so we have, all right, a 50 millimeter. All right, so let's change this to a 50 millimeter. All right, so if you have a 50. All right, so now let's think about pose. So if you're going to do CrossFit, CrossFit is all about catching the action. Nice thing about CrossFit, and I love doing CrossFit shoots. The thing about CrossFit is it's not so much about aesthetics, it's going to be about performance. So it's not about standing and looking pretty. It's going to be about catching that moment. So let's try to find a pose that would fit here. Okay, well, that's not a very good pose, but we're going to try. So let's pretend that I don't know what the proper lingo is. The snatch. I know that's horrible. I don't know that lingo. James, help me out. So we're going to pretend. Snatch and grab, snatching something. All right, so clean and jerk. I know, horrible. All right, so we have a couple different lights. So if you have a 4-light setup, you have tons of opportunity, tons of options for light setups. So one thing I want to do is I want to figure out what their physique looks like. You know, male or female. Are they going to wear clothes? Do they have a ton of muscles popping out? If they do, then I want to make sure that we can showcase those muscles. What modifiers do you have? Let's assume that you have at least one softbox or an octo. So my favorite light setup for fitness is going to be short side lighting. Short side lighting is when the key is on the far side or the short side of the face. I have strips and octas. Perfect. All right, so let's put strips. So on this light here, let's put a strip here. On this light here, let's put a strip on this one. And on the size of strips, I'm not doing these intentional. I'm not trying to get, perfect in terms of what sizes you have. A strip is a strip. Now, I mean, if you have a really tall one, of course, it's going to look different than if you have a 2-foot one. But just without asking too many questions, just trying to make this as quick as possible. All right, so does the height of the lights matter? Let's look at these lights individually. Let's turn this off. Let's look at these here. All right, so you have power settings here. All right, and let's get your camera settings set up here too. So here you have, if you're going to do action, you want to go something kind of fast. So let's go 1/2000, 50 millimeter. Let's go, you don't need f8. Let's go 2.8, just in case you want to blur out the background a little bit. It's not mandatory, but let's say you want to blur out what's in the background there. All right, so you have these lights here. So the easy way to do it is you want to make sure that your 2 strips are placed in a very easy position so that we can get that first shot taken as fast as possible. What I mean by that is if you look from the top down, your camera is here, place these lights in a Y position. So from you to the model to the lights, these 2 lights here, barely out of frame. And then that's going to give you edge lighting from top to bottom. Ish. You're going to miss out a little bit on the legs. But you want to have a Y position. Now, I'm a fan of having these lights fairly close. I don't like having these all the way back here. And I'll tell you why for a few different reasons. Reason number 1 is the further back you go, the more power you need to use. So if you have these on, let's say, power level 8, which if you're on power 8, that would be approximately, let's see, 1.5, a quarter power. So that'd be a quarter power with the 8200s. If you have them on a quarter power here, or if you have them on an 1/8 power here, the way that the light hits the body is going to be fairly similar, but because the lights are farther away, it's also going to light a lot more in the background. So your image is going to be a little bit flatter because everything else is lit up behind. If your power on your strobes is double, so 1/8 to a quarter, then you're also going to wear out your battery 2 times faster. The faster your battery is used, or faster that or the more power you have, then the slower the recycle time eventually. The thing that I don't like about the Godox brands is the lights. Mine, when I had them, they overheated all the time. And I don't shoot super fast, but they would always overheat. So that's one reason why I try to minimize how much I have to rely on the light, on the power. But you have 2 lights here, so you can use with modifiers or without. But one thing you're noticing is you have the edge light from top to bottom. So that's a super easy way. This light here on the outside, you do want to keep a close eye on that. Try to go with the Y position and then use this key light here to light up the face and the core as well. You don't need to have a ton of power on this. Reason why the key light on the front side as opposed to having it here is because if the light is on this side, then you're going to light up everything in the background. And Brad, yes, inverse square law. That is one of those technical things that I don't understand a lot. You didn't hear me say that. So if you have this light on this side, then it's going to make everything a lot flatter. You're taking away a lot of shadows, but 2, you're also lighting up the background a lot more. So that's why I like to have this key light more on this side, because as you can tell, now you're bringing a lot more definition. You're making it a lot more moody, because if this model here is turning their face more towards you, this light here is going to be, you're looking for that short side lighting, Rembrandt lighting on the face there. So I'm trying to fix this model's pose real quick. Oh no, his head's tilting. Sorry, I get easily distracted. I don't like his tilt. We'll come back. All right, so that's 3 lights. Now you have this 4th light here, and you have a couple different options here. One thing that I like to do oftentimes is if they don't have a ton of super shredded muscles. You can use shadows to showcase muscles, or you can use shadows to hide the lack of muscles. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll have this light directly underneath. Of course, you want the power to be a little bit lower, so this one is going to be at power 6. So let's put this one power 5. So this will give you a little bit of separation on the legs. So this is one position that I would have. Let's lower this down a little bit. Let's lower this power down even more. So the nice thing about having the light directly underneath, or the fill, is one of the biggest mistakes I see with fitness is they light for the upper body, but then the quads are super, super dark. That's done a lot in portraiture as well, just regular outdoors, taking pictures of people outside. You know, one of the most common YouTube lighting setups is a single light. 45 degrees off to the side, 45 degrees up. Boring, super boring. So if you add this light underneath, this is going to hit the legs, which is going to even out the skin tones, which will make editing a lot easier. So that's one position. So this is light setup number 1 that I would use to start off. Of course, this is based on the athlete looking more camera left. Another option would be to move this light onto the other side. So if this were here, drop this down, and I would actually keep this light on the ground as well. By having this light here, this is going to light up the back of the legs. So you can move this light around you know, as far around as needed. And what I'm looking for there is if there's any definition in the quads. Super boring. Yeah, inverse square law is definitely boring. At least for me it is. So this is option number 2 that I would use. And one thing I like to do, and this kind of relates to inverse square law, I like to have the lights as close as possible, because the closer the light is, then the more you're going to introduce shadows. And shadows with fitness are everything. And the big thing is I want to make sure that this light is feathered as much as possible, so that way I minimize the amount of light that hits that background. Because on the background, ideally I want to try to make all the muscles pop, and I want to darken the background a little bit. Yeah, so that's a second 4-light setup that I would use. If you don't want to use modifiers, you don't have to use them. So these are definitely optional as well. If you do take these off, then you're going to have to lower the power down a little bit. And then another option would be, if that is not something that you're really digging, you can take this light, you can aim this in the background. Say there's something that's super interesting back here. You can light up the background. So that's another one. And then depending on what the pose and what the physique looks like, one thing they could do is take this light and then go up high. And then make this. I'll show you what this looks like by itself. So this light here is going to make it super, super moody and dramatic. So let's say that instead of having this bar, this guy's pose is, that's not a very good pose for CrossFit, nor is that. No, I don't know what that pose is. Let's imagine that he's stretching. Okay, that's kind of like a stretch pose. All right, so if you have a boom arm, do you have a boom? We got Simon Morton. What's going on, Simon? Simon's based out of the UK. Just like we talked about the other day, Simon's super, super talented. He shoots a lot of amazingly modelish model types. So if you have a boom, then obviously you won't see the stand. All right, so if you have this light here, this is really good if you're trying to isolate the subject so that way you don't see anything in the background. If you have a really crowded gym, or if you can kind of give it the vibe that you're super, super isolated and alone, this is a light setup that I really enjoy using. But then that would mean that this light I would need to use to light up the face. So this, I would still do short side lighting. I get this light fairly close. You don't need it to be on super high power. But this is primarily because you have this light overhead to give you definition on the shoulders. And then this light here is just to light up the face. And then, because you have lights on the left side, I'd use these lights on the right side. Of course, turn the power down. So super easy light setup here. So the problem with this would be ideal if they're wearing jeans or pants or sweats or something like that. Because if they have shorts on, then you run into the issue of not seeing the quads. If they do have skin showing on the legs, then that's when you want to add in another light on this side to light up the legs. And having a modifier would be ideal in that case. So there's another additional light setup there. So there's a few options using 4 lights. With this edge light here, the height does matter. If you're shooting a female athlete, since someone that does, and they're into aesthetics, this edge light position here, the edge light. If you have a strip, let's put a strip on. The height of this light is important. And the reason why is because if someone has really nice glutes, and you can find out by asking them, hey, how much time do you spend on your legs, on your glutes? If you have this light too high, and imagine this is a female, if this light's too high, you don't see anything here on the back side. The point of lighting and the purpose of lighting is to, showcase all the hard work, obviously, to make something pop. It's also to draw the eye, to what you want the viewer to look at. So having this light a little bit lower is going to help accent or showcase the glutes. Anyways, hopefully that helped. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hopefully you guys are trying to shoot as much as possible. And if you got value from this, I would definitely love to see the images that you take after using some different lighting setups. Give me a follow on Instagram at Seeley Photo with an F, SeeleyPhoto. Tag me in the images that you take. I'd love to see some new talented photographers and the amazing images that you create. And hopefully you have a great week. I'm going to try to do this a couple times a week. We're going to try to do some live critiques of images. I'm going to try to do lighting breakdown. Then also going to try to do some Photoshop. Well, I'm going to try to do Photoshop carefully because I've already gotten a content strike for apparently posting images that look too much like sexual porn. Yeah, I don't understand it either, but anyway, y'all try to stay safe out there. Thank you for joining. Simon, good to see you, and you guys have a great week.